Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special program. This is the 176th Independence Day, Liberian Independence Day program, a virtual Independence Day program on focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar. I'm your host, and co-hosting with me is Snotty Raquel Yeedia. Snotty?
Thank you so much, Mr. John. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are. Greetings, everyone. So happy that you are all here with us to commemorate Liberia's 176th Virtual Independence Day program.
At this time, item one is our national anthem, which we did already. And so let me welcome Reverend Dr. Chandler Freeman, who's going to be giving our opening prayer. By the
Let
way,
us pray.
thank you.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We convene this independence celebration with confessions, individually and collectively. Have mercy upon us according to your loving kindness. Psalm 51. We confess our idolatry, chasing after other gods, old, foreign, and new, demons, spirits. We also confess circular humanism, where we make ourselves the center instead of you. We confess socialism, where powerful unions create antagonism between workers and owners. We confess atheism, which offers no basis for morality. We confess communism, responsible for political repression and restricted rights. We confess extreme capitalism, responsible for the rich and the poor disparity. We confess no vision, for without it, the people perish. We confess agnosticism, which has led to riots, negative social media. We also confess tribalism, which breeds prejudice, pride, fake news, and conflict. Deliver us from evil ideas. Deliver us from evil ideology and philosophies. And also we pray that you will deliver us from the evil one. Save us, precious Savior and Redeemer. We ask you to heal Liberia. Be with the leaders from the grassroots to the mansion. Give the leaders in the house the fear and the reverence for God. We pray for the spirit of excellence. Give them Sophia, or give them godly wisdom to lead well. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. God bless you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, Reverend Dr. Chandler Freeman. By the way, Reverend Freeman is the host of Hello Pastor, which comes your way every other Sunday at 6 p.m. Snotty, our next item.
Thank you so much. That was powerful, Reverend Chandler Freeman. Next, we will have performing our minister, Miss Abina Johnson.
Abina, we having some audio issue there.
Rise up a new Liberia, where the righteous lives, that's peace in the land. Celebrate freedom. Ooh. Your freedom. Come on out for Liberia. Place somewhere. Place of God. A place full of plenty. The land of liberty. Liberia. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. That's Minister Ebina Johnson, who has joined us from the UK. That's a gospel artist doing the song for us, which is Freedom. And she has scriptures all in there. I know Reverend Freeman was enjoying that. When
Yes.
righteousness exalts a nation, sin is a reproach. If the righteous rule, the people are happy. So thank you so much. At this time, we're going to go to our next item, which is the introduction of our national orator for the day, and that will be done by my co-host, Snotty Raquel Yeedia. Snotty, take it away from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again, Mr. John. So I want to introduce to you today an individual that wears a patriotic symbol of pride, honor, and enthusiasm on her heart for Liberia. Though she was born in Annika County, Minnesota, Fahnbulleh considers herself a birthright citizen of the Republic of Liberia and an indigenous daughter of the Ga clan in Nimba County. She is a devoted wife of Boyka Fahnbulleh and the proud mother of 4 children, Ashe, Nasir, Adama, and Naima. Ms. Fahnbulleh spent most of her childhood in Minnesota and Wisconsin, where she started a life of social and political activism at the young age of 14. A vocal advocate for U.S. intervention in the Liberian civil crisis, she was a lead and organized several anti-war protests to the Minnesota State Capitol and the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., while still in high school. While studying political science and public at the University of Minnesota and public policy at the University of Wisconsin, she continued her political activism and traveled to numerous counties, networking with activists in the Caribbean, Latin America, and Africa. Also served as the vice chair of the African Student Cultural Center at the University of Minnesota for 2 consecutive years. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, a Master of Arts in Public Policy, and several other professional certifications and licenses. Before going to Liberia to serve in the post-war institutional development effort, Carl worked in the USA as a statistical analyst, a diversity and inclusion policy analyst, and an emerging markets manager. In 2009, Hall went to Liberia to work as a UNDP technical consultant to the Liberia Land Commission, where she designed the technical and statistical vetting process for the assessment of all public lands in the Republic of Liberia. It was her meticulous work that helped support Dr. Othello Brandy, the framer of the Land Right Act of Liberia. Her work with the UNDP earned her a reputation as a no-nonsense institutional reformist. As a result, she was invited to apply for the role of Managing Director of the National Transit Authority of Liberia, where she extended the transportation services beyond Monrovia to Grand Bassa, Grand Cape Mount, Margibi, Bong, Nimba, Lofa, and Grand Jide counties. She remains the only woman in history to have served in that role. Hall went on to serve at the Liberia Maritime Authority as the Executive Director of Coastal and Inland Waterways and Deputy Minister of Land and Rail Transport at the Ministry of Transport. In both roles, she utilized her background in public policy and statistics to develop policy solutions for the transport sector. She developed motor vehicle registration policies and the coding methodology for the license plates in 2016. Was also a trained archival researcher who has been a student of African world history since her early teens. She has utilized her skills to review primary source records on Liberian history, and she shares her findings on her FOO podcast titled The Liberia History Channel. Hall is also a founding member of the Liberia History Guild, Save the State Liberia, and the BAIO Liberia Agency, the Liberia Legacy Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, put your hands together for our national orator, Hall Fahnbulleh.
Thank you so much. Wow. Well, I want to just say, fellow citizens of the Sovereign Republic of Liberia, I'm honored to have been selected as the Focus on Liberia National Orator for the 176th anniversary of Liberia's triumphant Declaration of Independence, an event that would forever change the course of African world history. We often don't see Liberia as being an influencer of global events, but the single act of declaring her independence would shape the course and the future of Africa as a whole in many ways that we have often failed to acknowledge. We have to keep in mind the context under which this Declaration of Independence was declared in the year 1847. I want you all to know that in July of 1847, when Monserrato selected Samuel Benedict, John N. Lewis, Hilary Teague, Beverly Wilson, Elijah Johnson, and J.P. Griffin to represent their interests on the Constitution Committee at Providence Baptist Church, where they met, the United States of America at that time, at that very moment, was in the process of systematically exterminating 150,000 Native people of California, which the United States would eventually annex and incorporate a few years later. I want you to know that in the year 1847, when Grand Bassa selected John Day, Anthony William Gardner, Ephraim Titler, and R.E. Murray to represent their interests on the Constitution Committee, there were 3.9 million human beings in the United States under the bondage of some of the worst conditions that human beings have ever been subjected to, chattel slavery, and about 12 million other Africans in the same condition throughout the Caribbean and South America. I want you to know that in 1847, when Spino selected Ephraim Titler and R.E. Murray to represent their interests, along with J.W. Prout to serve as the secretary for the Constitution Committee. The continent of Africa, though besieged with wars and conflicts that were erupting due to this prolonged period of forced migration through the transatlantic slave trade, Africa was pretty much sovereign and in control of her own territory. I want you to know, though Africa was sovereign and in control of her own territory, the loss of human capital had thrust most of the continent into a period of cultural decline. Africa, though battered and exhausted, was still sovereign in 1847, with very few exceptions. Liberia, under the control of the American Colonization Society, was different from other settlements in the vicinity, mainly Sierra Leone. The difference between Liberia and Sierra Leone, and the reason Liberia was able to assert her sovereignty peacefully, relatively peacefully, and Sierra Leone was not, is because in the year 1847, the land that Sierra Leone, Freetown, and these areas were sitting on, those treaties were negotiated by the British Crown. And the Africans who were settled at Freetown and within the control of the British Crown could not call their sovereignty without waging war on Britain. I want you to remember that Freetown and the areas that were controlled by the British was a small portion of the land that we consider to be Sierra Leone today. Those lands were acquired through the process of what the British claimed were fair and honorable treaties. On the contrary, Liberia was not negotiated for by a sovereign country. Liberia was negotiated for by a private enterprise called the American Colonization Society, which truly did not have the right of sovereignty over Africans or any real control over sovereignty in Africa. They were not backed by the United States. The US government had absolutely nothing to do with the signatures of the acquisition of the land. Therefore, for Liberia to declare its independence, they did not have to wage war on the United States. They simply had to convince the American Colonization Society through coercion and cooperation to allow these very lettered men to control their own destiny. This is Africa, they said, and we are Africans. I want you to know that in 1847, Africa and her descendants, free and enslaved, were the dehumanized objects of global contempt. The false doctrine of white supremacy was used to justify the most atrocious oppression of human beings in recorded history. And it was later proclaimed in the Dred Scott decision, just 10 years after Liberia's independence, that Black men had no rights which the white man was bound to respect. This is important because this is the story of how Liberia, claiming its sovereignty and its self-determination, stood as an affront, as defiance to the doctrine of white supremacy. Why, we ask? Were the other territories in the vicinity not included when coastal Sino, coastal Bassa, and coastal Monserrato declared their independence? I want you to remember that in the year 1847, at Robertsport, at Maryland, and many other places along the coast that were not included in 1847, were under the auspices of other colonization societies, that were not part of the declaration and the declared territory that became the Republic of Liberia in 1847. They were incorporated later. I want you to also know that the majority of the territory that we today consider to be Liberia were under the sovereign leadership of various kings throughout what we called at that time the hinterland of Liberia. They were not stateless, they were citizens of their traditional nations. And their territory was not part of the coastal controlled territory that was the initial Republic of Liberia. At that time, they were sovereign. Why is this important? It is important because Liberia being sovereign in a context which the Western world, under the Western laws, had acknowledged, was later able to be a place of refuge for those who would have their sovereignty threatened by Europeans just 40 years later. I'm going to repeat what I just said. Though most of the Africans, in fact, most of Africa was sovereign, just 40 years after Liberia declared her independence under Western law, the sovereignty of Africa was threatened because of the Berlin Conference. This is extremely important. We often think that Liberia was some kind of land acquisition or land grab. The primary source records show very clearly that the territory that was under the control in 1847 grew by accession slowly over time. November 15th, 1884 through February 26, 1885, there was a Berlin Conference, also known as the Congo Conference. This was a time when European powers had all decided that they were going to get together and carve Africa out for themselves. Liberia was still independent. Prior to this, the French had been threatening the sovereignty of many Africans within territories that they had claimed, grabbed illegally. The last example of this in our vicinity of Liberia was that of Almami Samori Toure, who was able to keep the French at bay for a period of 20 years from 1878 to 1898. I'm mentioning all of this because I want you all to know that we are descendants of a diverse group of people that became Liberian at different times and for different reasons. I also want you to understand that our becoming Liberian was a choice. After the Berlin Conference, the last effort at traditional African sovereignty was that of Almami Samori Toure, who used his brilliant, unmatched, and genius military skills to keep the French out of a vast amount of territory, which encompassed at the time northern Liberia, Ivory Coast, Guinea, and stretched into parts of the Gambia and northern Sierra Leone. Samori Toure was conquered in 1898. He was captured by French forces near the mouth of the Kavala River in what was at the time considered Liberian territory. It is now in Zeriko. Samori Toure's army descended into Liberian territory seeking refuge. The remnants of his military descended into Liberian territory seeking refuge. And many others who did not want to be subdued by the French at that time, also descended into Liberian territory seeking refuge. They became Liberian by choice. When the French conquered the territory that Samori Toure had previously occupied, this included the area around the Wologisi mountain range and the Nimba mountain highlands. It was those barefooted soldiers who stood side by side with these trained military people that were the remnants of the army of Samori Toure that defended that land against encroachment of the French, when Liberia's government did not have the ability to do so. I want you all to understand that this process of sovereignty did not occur as a gift or by force. It occurred as a resistance to the imperialist tyranny of Europe against Africa. Liberia still stands as a testament throughout generations of this resistance. The great-grandson of Amami Samori Toure became the first president of Guinea. Through oral tradition and through history, Ahmad Sekou Toure understood what Liberia represented for Africa, and he is quoted as saying, "In the history of this new Africa, which has just come into the world, Liberia has a preeminent place because she has been, for each of our people, the living proof that our liberty was possible. And nobody can ignore the fact that the star which marks Liberia's national emblem has been hanging for more than a century, the sole star that illuminated the night of domination of our people." He understood this. Liberia is a symbol of African liberation. In the words of Hilary Teague, the Liberian Declaration of Independence, he said clearly, Liberia is an asylum from the most grinding oppression. And when they designed the Constitution, they embedded these words into law and the founding principles of the country, that this would be an asylum for people who would need to escape from the tyranny of European global domination, a place where African people, born on the continent and elsewhere, could enjoy land sovereignty and self-determination. There have been many lies told on the Republic of Liberia. There have been many disinformation campaigns against the Republic of Liberia because of what it represents. One of the greatest lies that have been told against the Republic of Liberia is that the people of the country do not enjoy land sovereignty. This is not true. Embedded into the 1847 Constitution is a protection clause for indigenous land rights. This existed nowhere else in the world. It is because they had experienced and witnessed mass genocide in the country of their birth, in order for the Europeans to empty the land for their advancement. When they drafted the Constitution, they made sure that the indigenous people of the land their land was recognized. This is Africa, and we are Africans, they repeatedly said. The people who are the descendants of the 15th century king, Kandibia, who existed on the coast from prehistoric times. They too had no options other than become French, become British, or become Liberian. Those who chose Liberia remain Liberian today. It is not against the will of the indigenous, but by the consent of the indigenous that Liberia exists today. Our northern boundary, our western boundary, our eastern boundary, those lines are drawn with the blood of barefooted indigenous soldiers who fought European encroachment in the Gola forest, in the Guinea forest, at the Kavala. We must remember, though we don't know their names, we know their deeds. These two are the heroes that made Liberia possible. Though we do not know their names, we know their deeds. Without them, there would be no Nimba in Liberia. Without them, there would be no Lofa in Liberia. Without them, Maryland would be Ivory Coast. Cape Mount would be Sierra Leone. Liberia may not exist at all. Liberia is a culmination of a collective effort of Africans fighting for sovereignty and achieving it and maintaining it throughout the centuries. Almost 2 centuries, I should say. Liberia is a culmination of African self-determination and refusal to be subdued. Liberia is a living testament to the spirit of liberty for African people. We should not forget this. Sovereignty is our history, the struggle for sovereignty and the struggle to retain and maintain it. Economic annexation in 1943 was one of the greatest setbacks of our country, where they could not conquer us and take our land, but they took our ability to stand as an equal economic trading partner with the creation of Firestone, backed by a very powerful United States government. Still, we maintained our land sovereignty. What is the responsibility we have today to this tremendous legacy? The responsibility we have today is to know the legacy, to understand why and how the country came to exist, and to take the responsibility to pick up the torch of liberty and move it forward. To pick up the torch of responsibility and move it forward. These giants, these courageous people, many of whom names we will never know, some of whom names we actually know. Hillary Teague, Elijah Johnson. Our first president, Joseph Jenkins Roberts, who stood in Barbados and declared, "I have done more to eliminate the slave trade on the West African coast than all the descendants of Europe, than all of the natives of Europe combined." He declared this. He was one of the most successful generals when it came to abolishing these slave barracoons along our coast. All of this is documented. We have much to be proud of. Liberia is the home of Black abolitionists. Liberia is the home of Pan-Africanism. It was born through our inception. There would be no Marcus Garvey if not for Liberia. I want people to understand the tremendous responsibility that comes with this kind of sovereignty. Liberia is the only country in the entire world where every inch of her territory is owned by African people, either collectively through community property or individually through deeds. This is written into our Constitution before Africa was partitioned and divided by Europe. Did we lose a lot of our territory? Yes, we did. The fact that we have territory at all and exist at all is a miracle. What responsibility do we have to carry this forward, to carry this torch into the future? When you understand the giants whose shoulders upon which you stand, you will know the profound responsibility that comes with calling yourself a Liberian. It is not just a citizenship that you can take for granted. It is also a profound responsibility to strive towards excellence and manifest your God-given destiny as a self-determinate human being. Nobody gave us sovereignty. Nobody is going to give us economic sovereignty. We have to manifest our triumphant destiny ourselves. It is our responsibility. The burden falls on our shoulders. The Americans did not even recognize our independence until 1868 because they were still holding human beings in bondage. The Americans did not defend our sovereignty except where their economic interests were affected. The entire history of Liberia has been us playing ourselves between multiple powerful European powers, outwitting, outsmarting, outmaneuvering, in order to keep our sovereignty. People say, oh, what is there to celebrate? We're poor, we're corrupt, we're backward. And I say we have everything to celebrate. We are free, we are sovereign. Most of the work has been done for us. What the founders and all of our forefathers have been through and faced and conquered and overcome to pass to us this land we call Liberia is far greater, far more difficult, was far more challenging than what we face today. And they did so with dignity, with strength, with courage, with self-determination. Were there treacherous traitors among them? Yes. Were there those fighting alongside the enemy, committing treason against the Republic? Yes. Did the enemy manage to incite wars within the territory and pit us against one another, trying to destroy us? Yes. Has the enemy taken over and brainwashed our population to think that we are nothing? Have they taught us to hate our country? Yes. But we are still here. Liberia is still here. I remember when the United States Ambassador McCarthy said in a flippant and disrespectful remark, "What would J.J. Roberts say? What would Joseph Jenkins Roberts say about Liberia today?" I know the answer, McCarthy. Joseph Jenkins Roberts would be proud that Liberia still exists in the face of the most horrific and organized and orchestrated war against any sovereign nation in history, continuous and breaking, because what Liberia represents, like Haiti, is the audacity of Africans to try to assert their God-given rights to self-determination in the face of white supremacy. We exist today. Joseph Jenkins Roberts would be proud, even in our poverty and our broken state, that we remain sovereign and that there is still a torch to carry forward into the future. If someone had told Hillary Teague when he drafted that Declaration of Independence that the year 2023, Liberia would still exist, he would be amazed, because they knew what we would face in the future. They knew what they were up against. They did it anyway. They were not cowards. I want you all to know, fellow citizens of the sovereign Republic of Liberia, sovereignty is your property. It is your inheritance collectively. Whether you be the descendants of the great Malinka Empire, whether you be the descendants of Kandi Bia, whether you be the descendants of the repatriated African Americans or the recaptured Africans, or the many slave class, working class, serf class, farmers, workers of the Mendi people in places like Lofa, Nimba, what is now Bokuru. Whether you be a recent immigrant or you be the most ancient inhabitants, the descendant of the most ancient inhabitants. What you have in the Republic of Liberia, even today, where all of these African states have followed our lead and declared their independence, what you still have is the strength of the giants whose shoulders we stand upon to carry the torch forward into the future. You have to take responsibility. Nobody's going to clean Monrovia but us. Nobody is going to teach our children to love themselves but us. It is in the interest of no country to see Liberia strive except Liberia. We have to take the torch of liberty, of sovereignty, and the responsibility that comes with it by first improving ourselves. Start with yourself. If we want a better country, we have to be better citizens. We have physical sovereignty, but we do not have intellectual sovereignty. We have physical sovereignty, but we do not have sovereignty of mind. It is a psychological burden that we need to remove from our shoulders and believe in ourselves once again. With this torch of sovereignty should come the courage to manifest the intended destiny of the Republic of Liberia. All nations are a work in progress. Ours stands as a testament to the greatest and most courageous men and women of the 19th century that brought this country into existence. A country of which I am so proud to be a citizen of. Fellow citizens of the Sovereign Republic of Africa, take your sovereignty and the responsibility that goes with it and take it forward into the future with self-determination, with unity, togetherness, and carry that flag, wave it with pride. It represents things that are miraculous, are beautiful, are powerful. I want to thank you for your time. May God continue to bless the Republic of Liberia and save the state. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much, the Queen, Miss Carl Fahnbulleh, for that beautiful oration. See, this is the beauty of us coming from various different backgrounds, tribes, ethnicities, ideations, and we all collectively come together as one, though, as one nation under God. When you think about the definition and connotation of sovereignty, what is that? What does that speak to you? What does that speak to your spirit? This is a big deal, family. Here it is. I feel like there's shifts, and there's a shifting. And we talk about energy, we talk about collective shifts. We are in a pivotal time in history, my family, my people. And I can honestly say that I'm super proud, even though I haven't stepped foot on the soil of Liberia, being a Liberian American. I'm super proud to call myself a Liberian. This is my roots. And I know that you all are too. And Ms. Kalfamua spoke to the hearts and minds of our people to share the background and what it means to truly be Liberian, the essence of its core of our nation. It's beautiful and it's powerful. Let there be a sense of urgency. Dig deep. I encourage you all, my family, my people. Go within yourself and let this speak to your hearts and minds. Let this message be of impact. And speaking of dig deep, as we dig deep and as we move forward in progression of our country, let us begin to dig deep and sacrifice as well. And that sacrifice also comes with digging deep in our pockets to contribute in any way that we can, in our own way, to move our country forward in progression. Together we can really make Liberia great again. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our fundraiser chair, Mr. Jerome Gaiman, to come forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Gaiman.
Thank you, Santi. Jerome is not here, so I will be playing that role today. Um,
Thank you, Mr. Stan.
and before I get to the fundraiser, I am profoundly touched by the message delivered by Mr. Carl Fahnbulleh. So many things I took away, but this is the one I'm prepared to share. That when it comes to sovereignty, we have physical sovereignty. We have the land, it's ours. No one can take it away. They couldn't do it, they can't do it now. But do we have sovereignty in our minds? And that is profound. How do we see ourselves? In essence, that's what she's saying. Do we even know our country? Do we recognize the beauty, the miracle that became the country Liberia, that our giants fought for, despite their own shortcomings? They stood the test of time. They didn't have the kind of advanced technology that we have, and yet they stood tall to give us this place called Liberia. It gives so many African refuge, and today they can say they too have countries or country. Do we see that? And how do we embrace that? How do we represent that? How do we live that? How do we project that in everything we do? And to me, that was profound. Carl, thank you so very much. It is something that you have left with me today, and I thought to share it. Focus on Liberia Virtual Independent Days program is ongoing. Focus on Liberia, represent Liberia. As we always say here, we educate, we elevate, and we promote all things Liberia. And this is our nation's Independence Day celebration. we are elevating what that nation Liberia is, and we are promoting what was given to us. Precious indeed. And so, being a vehicle for this nation Liberia, in educating and elevating everything Liberia, we cannot do it alone as an institution. We need all of us to do so. Focus on Liberia. We'd like to raise some funds today. We are in Liberia and we have reporters there. We try to open an office in Liberia, and a monthly payment for that office is 200 United States dollars. And so we will at this time ask our followers, our viewers, those who believe in what we do and appreciate what we do, to be able to contribute to what we are doing in Liberia so that we can continue to do it and do more. And our reporters, they need gadgets. Those are devices that they use to go live and to also carry on their report. A smartphone, it can be a tablet, it can be an iPad that you have. It does not have to be money. If you have any of the items that you may not have that much use for, even if you do, you wish to share it with Focus on Liberia so that our reporters on the ground can use it, we will definitely appreciate it. If you wish to make a financial contribution, on the screen, you can donate to Focus on Liberia via our Cash App. The phone number for that Cash App is 651-392-6224, and the name is FOL Media. That contribution will be received by us, and we can guarantee you it will be used for the internal purpose, as we have always done. Also, if you prefer to use Zelle, you can use Zelle. Dennis can put that on the screen there, please. All right, thank you. You can also donate to us via Zelle, and you can use the phone number 651-392-6224, and it will be received as well. So that is it. And if you want to make a contribution, you can so do by using the information provided. The information is also in the scrolling text below, because we will not keep it on the screen. We might post it in the Facebook Live feed as well so that you can see it easily. So that is it. We will appreciate your contribution. Dennis? Thank you. Thank you. And if you are there, even after today, and you still want, you can say, well, every month I'm going to contribute $10. Or you can say, I'm going to pay 1 month rent of $200. At least we want to pay for 6 months. As we go towards elections, we want to be able to do these things so that people benefit from this kind of thing. Again, I can't be any proud of to be a Liberian today. The speech has made all of us proud. Liberia is the only country in the world where every inch of its land is owned by the native Liberians. That is profound. He said, do we have anything to celebrate? Some people ask, if why are we celebrating Independence Day? According to our orator today, she said, everything. We have everything to celebrate because we are still here. Thank you again, Carl. At this time, I want to welcome the chair of our board of advisors, Professor Dr. K. Moses Namwe. Everybody in Liberia calls him Prof. He's going to give our remarks. We call that the closing remarks. Prof. Namwe, it's all yours.
Well, I want to thank you, Brother Ja, and most significantly, I want to thank Sister Fahnbulleh for the beautiful address that she delivered. My goal is to do closing remarks and not to overextend the time. So in closing, I want to comment on the element of responsibility that is required of all of us who rejoice in being known as Liberians. the responsibility element cannot be overemphasized. Somebody can work, but there has to be an extension of the work. The orator talked about responsibility. Responsibility calls for a couple of things I call intangible assets. Responsibility calls for cleanliness, both inward and outward, in that country called Liberia. It calls for trustworthiness. Without the trust element, there are so many things that will go amok. So I talk about cleanliness, I talk about trustworthiness. I must talk about hard work. You know, at the beginning of the nation called Liberia, there were two important things that people were always talking about. They were talking about the need for education. They were also talking about hard work. We cannot celebrate our sovereignty, which is the control of the land, the sea, and the people. And to have that sense of urgency to keep the land and the people going. So cleanliness, trustworthiness, hard work, and there's got to be mutual respectability. We see the jostling for power in the country, but if there's no sense of mutual respect, we can turn out to be any other country that may be fighting within the means and bounds of the country they have. We must be better than that. And the last thing is that there has to be mutual help. You know, sometimes people kind of misunderstand what socialistic aspects are all about, what communalism is all about. Those who want to destroy those important things, those important concepts, will say that there's no place for communalism, there's no place for socialism. But at the core of all these things is the ability for people to help one another, where the rich will look down and take up the poor, where the weak should benefit from the work of the strong. Those are important aspects. So as we leave today, we must keep in mind Sister Fahnbulleh's point of understanding the power of legacy. We must understand the power of legacy. We must understand our history. Yes, there is the good and there is the bad. We must understand, if we are talking about the bad aspect, we must understand the forces, the voices and forces that made that happen, and what we can do to make us possible to strengthen the good, and understanding what I ended with, which is that we must never lose sight of the intangible assets: cleanliness, trustworthiness, hard work, mutual respectability, and mutual help. It is through those that we will make greater progress as we move into another 176 years and plus. So those of you who have ears to hear, please do hear whatever has been said today. And just to chip in, let us make sure that this piece of work that is called FOL has got to endure. FOL has a magic wand, WAND. We all must hold onto that wand to see FOL going. Somebody is talking about $10. Even if you have $1, even if you have $1, so you don't have any excuse to say, well, I don't have $100, I don't have $10. $1 can do a whole lot. So in the box that has to do with the $1, I mean the raising of funds, please, in the next few days or in the next few weeks, next few months, next few years, let it be said that your $1, I can even go down to 50 cents, as long as you make it regular. Let FOL grow through your effort, through our effort. It should be a collectivity. That is part of the communalism. That is the urging I'm giving today. And I'm sure I speak for all of us in here when I say we all should put together and keep FOL going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Before we come in with our next speaker or our benediction, I want to tell you a story that what I was told that God, in His infinite wisdom, gave a roasted palm nut to two creatures. One we call the 1,000 legs, and the other black one. So centipede and millipede. So the one with the shorter legs is the centipede, the black one, and the shining one is the millipede. So God gave them palm nut. What happened was millipede roasted the palm nut and was able to put it on her body. That's why you see millipede shining today. Everybody want to play with millipede. But centipede ate the palm nut. And so centipede is so disgusting, she smells it. So nobody wants to give centipede, even to look at her when you see her, because what was given her, she ate it. She did not use that for the future. So I promise you, whatever palm nut you give us today, we will definitely not eat it today and forget and be stink tomorrow. We're going to use it on our body, and you're going to see it manifest. So that when you see FOL in the next 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, you will be proud, you will be happy that indeed the dime you contributed helped us to reach places. Again, I want to thank you all for those who donated. I see a lot of donations came in. One from Danielle Knuckles, who gave us $100, $50. One from Henry, $100. You see my Dave, $200. From Save the State, we have $20. And let the donation keep coming. We promise you we're going to do our best. And today is not the end. In case you don't have it today, please share, pass the word. And we're going to acknowledge you and let you know that we got what you donated. Thank you again. At this time, whatever we preach here, whatever we say, we have to practice it, right? Liberia was, many people came together, as we heard from our speech, the repatriates, those from America, those from other parts of Africa, those that were recaptured, those who walked, those who came even later, has later, like last year, and became Liberians. We are all Liberians. We have all kinds of different religions, religious belief. So we started with a Christian invocation. We're going to close now with Dr. Abdullah Dukle giving our benediction. And Dr. Dukle is from the Islamic faith. Dr. Duke.
Yes, Dennis, thank you, and thanks to everyone today. And I'd like to especially thank Cole for her brilliant lecture. I've listened to it on my way here, and I wish I had been able to participate in the discussion. In Islam, our benediction is very easy. It's usually the first Fatiha. First Fatiha meaning the first verses of the Quran. As you know, the Quran is always in Arabic. That's because people thought the way only to preserve its authenticity is to keep it in language, so you don't have translation and other things missing. So the first surah, meaning the first chapter of the Quran, is called the Fatiha, and Fatiha means the beginning. This is English. In English, it says this: in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful, Master of the day of judgment, you alone we worship, and you alone ask for help. The path of those you have blessed, not those you are displeased with, or those who are astray. So it's very simple, and I'll say it now in Arabic, so that people who are listening to this, Muslims, actually are reading the Quran. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين واهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. May God bless Nigeria. May God bless the nation. May God bless His people, His leaders. Give them wisdom, to give them foresight, and to make them care more about the people of the country. May God bless this great land full of countries that we still have to take advantage of. Thank you very much, and I'm pleased to be with you.
Amen.
Amen.
We thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof, for those words. Thank you, Carl, for the oration. Thank you, Dr. Fremont, for the opening prayer. Thank you, Minister Abina Johnson, for the performance. Thank you, Jimmy. We say thank you, Dr. Duke, and thanks to Mr. Anthony Sear, who is at controls here. We thank our viewers, even those who will watch later. Always focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. At this time, we're going to close with the song that Abina did, which is Freedom. And that's the song we're going to close with. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Darkness cries and the thunder comes, the cloud releases the smoothing rain, the trumpet sound and the angels sing with the voice from heaven, or heal the pain. there's peace in the land.